Her name was Vanessa Martinez. His name was Officer Derek Chen. And their story raises questions that still haunt the California Department of Corrections to this day. How does an inmate serving hard time in one of America's toughest women's prisons gain enough access to a guard to make him the target of her obsession? How does a woman locked in a cell 23 hours a day learn his schedule, his routine, his weaknesses? How does she study him like prey without anyone noticing? Because that's exactly what Vanessa Martinez did. She watched him every single day through the bars, across the yard, during count. Her eyes followed Officer Derek Chen's every move. He was a correctional officer. She was serving 15 years for armed robbery. And inside the most secure women's prison in California, she was planning something that would shock an entire state. It happened during the 6 a.m. head count on a quiet Tuesday morning. Officer Chen made his usual walk down D block, clipboard in hand, checking cells one by one. When he reached cell 47, Vanessa was waiting. She had been awake for hours. What he didn't know was that she had spent 3 months stealing, trading, and crafting a weapon, a sharpened piece of metal pried from the recreation yard fence. What he didn't see was her hand wrapped around it, hidden beneath her prison-issue blanket. As he stepped closer to verify her presence, she made her move. This is the story of an obsession so dangerous it turned a maximum security prison into a hunting ground. A fixation so consuming it would end with blood pooling on the concrete floor and an entire facility on lockdown. By the end of this story, you'll understand how love, or what she called love, can become the deadliest weapon of all.
Vanessa Martinez wasn't just watching Officer Derek Chen. She was learning him, memorizing him, planning for him. She knew he took his lunch break at 1:15 p.m. every Tuesday. She knew he walked D block alone during the 6 a.m. count. She knew which days he worked overtime and which nights he looked exhausted. She collected these details like weapons. And in a maximum security prison where every movement is monitored, where every interaction is recorded, where the walls have cameras and the guards have radios, somehow she found her opening. This is the story they tried to bury, the story that exposed cracks in a system meant to be unbreakable. The story that led to 16 staff terminations, a federal investigation, and policy changes across the entire California prison system. And the story that proves sometimes the most dangerous inmates aren't the ones behind bars. They're the ones who know how to manipulate everyone around them. By the time you finish this story, you'll know exactly what happened in cell 47. You'll hear the 911 call. You'll see the security footage they didn't want released. And you'll understand why Vanessa Martinez's case became the one that corrections officers whisper about in training sessions as a warning. Never underestimate an inmate who has nothing to lose and everything to prove. Stay with me, because what happened inside those walls defies everything you think you know about prison, about obsession, and about how far one woman would go. To understand how this tragedy unfolded, we need to go back before the obsession, before the manipulation, before the blood. Vanessa Martinez grew up in East Los Angeles, the youngest of 4 children in a family that struggled to stay afloat. Her mother worked 2 jobs. Her father left when she was 7. By the time Vanessa was 16, she'd learned a valuable lesson. If you wanted something in this world, you had to take it. Smart, charismatic, and dangerously beautiful, Vanessa knew how to read people. She could find your weakness in 5 minutes of conversation and exploit it in 10. Friends described her as magnetic. Teachers called her manipulative. Both were right. At 19, she fell in love with Marcus Webb, a small-time drug dealer with big-time ambitions. Vanessa didn't just love Marcus, she worshipped him. Everything she did for him. When Marcus decided to rob a convenience store in Riverside, Vanessa didn't just drive the getaway car. She went inside with him, gun in hand. Marcus got 25 years. Vanessa got 15. And that's when her obsession with Marcus should have ended. But obsessive personalities don't work that way. They don't let go. They transfer. She arrived at Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla on a cold November morning in 2019. 24 years old, scared, angry, and still clinging to the idea that Marcus would wait for her. He didn't. 2 months into her sentence, Marcus sent her a letter. He'd found someone else, someone on the outside. He told her to forget about him and move on. Most people would have cried. Vanessa Martinez just shifted her focus. Now let's talk about Derek Chen. 31 years old, former military, Derek became a correctional officer because he believed in rehabilitation. While other guards kept their distance, Derek talked to inmates like they were human beings. He learned their names, asked about their families, encouraged them to take classes, stay clean, do better. Derek's colleagues respected him. Inmates trusted him. His girlfriend of 3 years, Sarah, was planning their wedding. Everything in Derek Chen's life was exactly where it should be. Except Derek had one fatal flaw. He believed everyone deserved a second chance. He believed people could change, and he believed that showing compassion was strength, not weakness. Vanessa Martinez saw that compassion, and she saw opportunity. It started small. A polite, "Good morning, Officer Chen," a thank you when he handed out mail, a question about the GED program. Derek, being Derek, engaged. He answered, he encouraged, he smiled. And Vanessa studied that smile like a scientist studying a lab rat. Within 3 months, Derek Chen had become Vanessa's entire world. She memorized his schedule, knew which days he worked, which shifts, which housing units. She positioned herself wherever he'd be. The yard during his patrol, the library when he supervised, the cafeteria during his rounds. Other inmates noticed. "Girl, you got it bad for that CO," her cellmate joked. Vanessa didn't laugh. She didn't deny it either, because in her mind, it wasn't a crush. It was destiny. She started writing letters, not to Derek, of course. That would be too obvious. She wrote to her sister on the outside, pouring out pages about a man she'd met, a good man, a kind man, a man who understood her. She never used his name, but she wrote about him constantly. Then came the drawings. Vanessa had always been artistic, and she started sketching portraits during rec time. Mostly other inmates at first, then guards, then repeatedly Derek Chen. Same face, same smile, over and over. She kept them hidden under her mattress. 63 drawings of the same man. Derek noticed Vanessa, but not the way she wanted. To him, she was just another inmate doing her time, polite, respectful, no trouble. He had no idea he'd become her entire reason for breathing.
July 18th, 2021, a Sunday morning. The prison was understaffed, as California facilities often are on weekends. Derek Chen came in for an overtime shift. He'd been planning to spend the day with Sarah, but they needed bodies on the floor, and Derek never said no. Vanessa saw him arrive at 6:47 a.m. She'd been awake since 4, waiting. She knew Sunday overtime schedules ran thin. She knew Derek would likely be assigned to Tower 3, overlooking the recreation yard and the education building. She knew because she'd been planning this for weeks. During breakfast, Vanessa approached a guard she'd befriended over months of small talk, Officer Linda Rodriguez. "I need to get to the library," Vanessa said. "I'm so close to finishing my GED, and the test is next week." Linda hesitated. The library wasn't technically open on Sundays, but Vanessa was a model inmate, and Linda was sympathetic. 20 minutes, Linda said. "That's all I can give you." Vanessa thanked her and headed toward the education building. What Linda didn't know was that the education building was directly below Tower 3, and that Vanessa had been watching the maintenance schedules for months. The air conditioning unit in the education building had been broken for 2 weeks. The repair crew was scheduled to fix it that Sunday morning, which meant the building would be open, which meant access. Derek Chen, watching from Tower 3, saw movement in the education building at 8:15 a.m. He radioed down, "I've got someone in education block. Is that authorized?" The response crackled back. 10-4, Inmate Martinez, library access approved by Rodriguez, 20-minute window. Derek acknowledged and went back to scanning the yard. He had no reason to be concerned. Vanessa Martinez was no threat, just a young woman trying to better herself. At 8:23 a.m., the fire alarm in the education building went off. Protocol demanded immediate response. Derek left his tower position and headed down to investigate. Another guard should have replaced him, but they were short-staffed. Nobody came. Derek entered the education building at 8:26 a.m. The alarm was blaring, smoke detectors flashing, but no smoke, no fire. "Anybody in here?" he called out. "Officer Chen, help!" Vanessa's voice came from the back library room. "I think something is burning." Derek moved quickly through the building, following her voice. Standard procedure: locate the inmate, secure the area, investigate the alarm. He found Vanessa in the library, standing near the electrical panel. "I smelled something burning, and then the alarm went off," she said, her voice shaking. She looked genuinely frightened. "I didn't touch anything, I swear." Derek approached the electrical panel. Old building, old wiring. False alarms weren't uncommon. He pulled out his radio to report a likely false alarm, and that's when everything changed. "Officer Chen," Vanessa said softly, "do you ever wonder what your life would be like if you'd made different choices?" Derek turned. Something in her voice had shifted. "Vanessa, I need you to step back and wait by the door while I check this out." "I think about it all the time," she continued, not moving. "Different choices, different paths, different people in my life. I think about you all the time, Derek." The use of his first name was a violation. Inmates didn't call guards by their first names. Derek's training kicked in. "Inmate Martinez, I need you to step back right now." "I can't," whispered. "I can't step back. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop seeing you everywhere. Don't you feel it too? The connection?" Derek reached for his radio. "I'm calling this in. You need to return to your inmate." And that's when Vanessa lunged. Not violently at first. She reached for his arm, trying to pull the radio away, trying to touch him, trying to make contact. "Just listen to me. Just give me 5 minutes. I know you feel it too. I see how you look at me." Derek pushed her back, not hard, but firmly. "Martinez, stand down, now." "No," something broke in her voice. Years of obsession, month of planning, all crashing down in one moment. "No, you don't get to ignore me. You don't get to pretend I don't exist. I exist for you. Everything I do is for you." Derek got his radio to his mouth. "Code yellow in education building. I need backup. Now!" And that's when Vanessa saw the maintenance tool on the nearby desk. A heavy-duty screwdriver left behind by the AC repair crew. What happened in the next 30 seconds would be debated in courtrooms for the next 2 years. Derek saw her reach for it. "Vanessa, don't!" She grabbed the screwdriver, not to attack, she would later claim. To threaten, to make him listen, to make him understand. Derek moved to disarm her. Standard defensive tactics. He was trained for this. He was bigger, stronger, trained in close quarters combat. But Vanessa Martinez wasn't thinking rationally anymore. She was thinking about every letter Marcus never sent back, every dream that died behind these walls, every night she'd spent staring at sketches of Derek's face. The struggle lasted maybe 20 seconds. They crashed into a bookshelf. Books tumbled. She swung wildly. He tried to restrain her without causing serious injury, still thinking he could de-escalate, still believing in the good in people. That belief cost him everything. The screwdriver found the gap in his tactical vest, right side between the 4th and 5th rib. She didn't mean to do it, she would later say. She just wanted him to stop fighting, stop pulling away, stop rejecting her. Derek gasped. His hand went to his side. Blood, dark and spreading, seeped through his uniform. Vanessa dropped the screwdriver, the rage drained from her face, replaced by something worse. Horror, not at what she'd done to him, but at the realization that she'd ruined everything, that he'd never love her now. "Derek, Derek," she whispered, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I just wanted you to listen." Derek collapsed against the wall, sliding down, leaving a red smear behind him. He pressed his radio button with shaking hands. "Officer down! Education building! Stabbed! Need medical! Now!" Vanessa knelt beside him, touched his face. "It's okay. I'm here. I'll take care of you. I'll always take care of you." Derek tried to push her away, but he was weakening fast. Blood pooled beneath him. Backup arrived 90 seconds later. They found Vanessa cradling Derek's head in her lap, stroking his hair, whispering, "I love you, I love you, I love you," while Derek Chen bled out on the library floor. And when they pulled her away, when they slammed her against the wall and cuffed her hands behind her back, Vanessa Martinez was smiling. Because in her mind, they'd finally had their moment. He'd finally seen her. Really seen her. And that was all she'd ever wanted.
If you're still watching and this story has you gripped, do me a favor. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what's your location? I want to see where in the world people are watching this unfold. Are you in California where this happened? Somewhere else in the US? Another country entirely? Comment below. Let's see how far this story reaches.
Derek Chen was airlifted to Community Regional Medical Center in Fresno. The screwdriver had punctured his lung and nicked his liver. He went into surgery at 9:47 a.m. Sarah, his fiancée, arrived at the hospital at 10:15, still in her pajamas, having received the call that every correctional officer's loved one dreads. Derek survived the surgery, but the next 72 hours would determine if he'd live long enough to testify about what happened in that library. While doctors fought for Derek's life, investigators descended on Central California Women's Facility. What they found would expose systemic failures that had been building for years. In Vanessa's cell, they discovered the drawings, 63 portraits of Derek Chen, some tender, some romantic, some disturbing. In one, she'd drawn herself and Derek together, his arm around her, both smiling. She'd written at the bottom, "Soon." They found letters, hundreds of pages written to her sister, chronicling her growing obsession.
He's the only one who sees me as human. He's the only one who understands that I'm more than my mistakes. We're meant to be together. I know it sounds crazy, but when you know, you know. Her cellmate, Maria Gutierrez, was interviewed. Yeah, she talked about him constantly, Maria told investigators. At first, I thought it was just a harmless crush, you know? A lot of girls in here get fixated on male guards. But with Vanessa, it was different. It was all-consuming. She knew everything about him. His schedule, his car, his girlfriend's name. I asked her once how she knew so much, and she just smiled and said, "I pay attention." Investigators pulled Vanessa's visitor logs. Her sister had visited twice in the past 6 months. During both visits, Vanessa had asked her sister to drive by Derek's address, to see what kind of neighborhood he lived in, to see if his girlfriend's car was there. The sister, uncomfortable but compliant, had done it once. When Vanessa asked her to do it again, she refused. "I told her she was scaring me," the sister said in her statement. "I told her she needed to let this fantasy go." She got angry, said I didn't understand, said I'd never understood her. That was our last visit. But here's where the investigation got complicated. 3 guards had witnessed concerning behavior from Vanessa regarding Derek over the previous 6 months. One guard, Officer Marcus Thompson, told investigators that Vanessa had asked him repeatedly about Derek's personal life. Was he married? Did he have kids? What did he do on his days off? "I shut her down every time," Thompson said. "Told her that kind of talk was inappropriate. She'd apologize, back off for a while, then come back with more questions. I reported it once, maybe 2 months before the incident." But here's the problem. That report, it never made it to Derek. It never made it to the shift supervisor. It got filed and forgotten in a facility drowning in paperwork and understaffed by 30%. Officer Linda Rodriguez, the guard who'd granted Vanessa library access that fatal Sunday, was placed on administrative leave. She was devastated. "I trusted her," Linda said through tears during her interview. "Vanessa was a model inmate, never any trouble, always respectful. How was I supposed to know?" The investigators asked the question that mattered. Did anyone ever warn you that Vanessa had an inappropriate fixation on Officer Chen? Linda shook her head. "No, never. If I'd known, I would never have let her have unsupervised access to any area where she might be." The maintenance crew that had left the screwdriver in the education building was questioned. Their supervisor admitted that tools were often left unsecured in low-risk areas. "This is a women's facility. Most of these inmates are non-violent offenders. We've been doing it this way for years without incident." But Vanessa Martinez wasn't most inmates. While the investigation continued, the media got hold of the story. In quote headlines, "Female inmate attacks guard in obsessive love plot." Television news crews camped outside the hospital where Derek fought for his life. His family, his fiancée, they were all hounded for statements. Sarah, Derek's fiancée, gave one interview. One. "Derek believed in people," she said, her voice breaking. "He believed that showing compassion could change lives, and someone took advantage of that. Someone weaponized his kindness. That's what destroys me most, that his best quality is what almost killed him." Public reaction was divided. Some blamed Derek for being too friendly with inmates. "You don't befriend prisoners. You maintain professional distance at all times, period." Others defended him. "Being humane isn't the same as being friends." A prison reform advocate argued, "We can't blame a guard for treating inmates with basic decency. We should be asking how someone with this level of obsession slipped through every mental health screening we have." And that question led to the most disturbing discovery of all. Vanessa Martinez had been evaluated by a prison psychologist 4 months before the attack. The reason? Another inmate had reported that Vanessa was acting weird about one of the guards. The psychologist conducted a standard evaluation, 45 minutes, basic questionnaire. Vanessa presented as calm, rational, appropriate. She denied any inappropriate attachments to staff.
She passed the evaluation with no red flags. But Dr. Foster only had 45 minutes for the evaluation. The California prison system, chronically underfunded and overwhelmed, allocated barely enough time for thorough psychological assessments. Dr. Foster was responsible for evaluating over 300 inmates. He was drowning in cases. Meanwhile, Derek Chen remained in critical condition. Infection set in. His lung collapsed twice. Sarah sat by his bedside every day, watching the man she loved fight for every breath. On day 5, Derek finally stabilized enough to give a preliminary statement to investigators. His voice was weak, his words came slowly, but his memory was clear. Derek told them, "She said she loved me. She said she'd been watching me, thinking about me, dreaming about me. I never saw it coming. I never encouraged it. I was just trying to do my job with compassion." Investigators asked the hard question. Did you ever have inappropriate contact with inmate Martinez outside of your professional duties? No. Derek's answer was immediate and firm. Never. I talked to her the same way I talk to every inmate. Respectful, professional. I never gave her reason to think there was anything more. They pulled surveillance footage from the prison. Thousands of hours. They analyzed every interaction between Derek and Vanessa over the previous year. What they found confirmed Derek's statement. Every interaction was professional, brief, appropriate. He treated her the same way he treated dozens of other inmates. The obsession was entirely one-sided. Derek Chen was never the willing participant that Vanessa had imagined him to be. He was a fantasy she'd constructed in her mind, a projection of everything she wanted him to be. But here's what kept investigators awake at night, the question that had no good answer. If Vanessa Martinez could fool psychologists, fool other inmates, fool guards, fool everyone around her while planning an attack for months, how many other inmates were doing the same thing right now? How many other obsessions were brewing behind bars, waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity? The California Department of Corrections didn't want to answer that question, but they were about to be forced to.
3 weeks after the attack, while Derek Chen continued his recovery and Vanessa Martinez sat in solitary confinement awaiting charges, investigators made a discovery that changed everything. Vanessa Martinez wasn't just obsessed with Derek Chen. Derek was her second target. Hidden in the air vent of her cell, investigators found a notebook, a planning journal that Vanessa had kept hidden for over 2 years. And what they read inside those pages revealed that the attack on Derek wasn't a crime of passion. It was calculated, methodical, and it had been attempted before. In the journal, Vanessa had documented her first obsession, a different guard, Officer Jason Morales. He'd worked at the facility during Vanessa's first year of incarceration. The journal entries were chilling. Day 47, saw JM smile at me today during count. He sees me, really sees me. Day 89, learned his schedule, learned his patterns. Everything happens for a reason. We were meant to meet. Day 134, spoke to him alone today for 3 minutes. He asked if I was adjusting okay. He cares about me. I can feel it. Over 6 months, Vanessa had built up the same fantasy about Officer Morales that she would later build about Derek Chen. She'd planned to stage a similar incident, to get him alone, to force him to acknowledge what she believed they had together. But then, Officer Morales transferred to a different facility. Vanessa was devastated. The journal entries from that period were dark, angry, obsessive. She wrote about finding out where he'd transferred, about writing him letters, about getting her sister to track him down. And then, abruptly, the journal entries stopped. For 3 months, the journal was empty. When the entries resumed, there was a new name, Derek Chen. Day 1. New guard today, DC.
He has kind eyes. He looks at inmates like we're human beings. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time he'll love me back. The pattern repeated, but this time Vanessa learned from her mistakes. She was more careful, more patient. She didn't ask obvious questions about Derek. She observed. She studied. She waited for the perfect opportunity. And she kept detailed notes about everything: Derek's schedule, his patrol routes, the days when staffing was low, the maintenance schedules, the blind spots in surveillance coverage, the guards who were sympathetic, the access points that were poorly secured. But here's the revelation that stunned investigators. On the very last page of the journal, dated 2 days before the attack, Vanessa had written something that suggested this was never going to end peacefully. If he won't choose me willingly, I'll make him need me. If I'm the one who saves him, he'll see. He'll understand. We're meant to be together. Even if I have to hurt him first to save him later. Even if I have to be the villain in everyone else's story. He'll know the truth. He'll know I'm the only one who truly loves him. Investigators read that entry over and over. The implications were terrifying. Had Vanessa planned to stab Derek with the intention of nursing him back to health, of being the one person who could comfort him through his trauma? Was the attack never meant to kill him, but to bind him to her forever? They brought this theory to Dr. Carolyn Hendricks, a forensic psychologist specializing in obsessive disorders. Dr. Hendricks had dealt with cases of erotomania before, the delusional belief that another person is in love with you. But Vanessa's case was different. Erotomania typically involves someone fixated on a person of higher status, a celebrity, a boss, someone unattainable. The sufferer believes secret signs and signals prove this person's hidden love. But Vanessa demonstrates something more dangerous. She shows elements of borderline personality disorder mixed with antisocial traits. She doesn't just believe Derek loves her. She believes she has the right to make him love her by any means necessary. The prosecution team, led by District Attorney Monica Reeves, knew they had to present this evidence carefully because there was another twist coming, one that would split public opinion down the middle.
Vanessa Martinez's defense attorney, Linda Ochoa, had agreed to take the case pro bono. Linda was a fierce advocate for women's rights and prison reform, and she had a theory that the prosecution really didn't want to hear. Linda obtained Vanessa's complete medical and psychological records from intake. What she found was damning, but not for Vanessa, for the system. When Vanessa entered the California correctional system, she'd been evaluated for mental health issues. The evaluation was required for all incoming inmates. The psychologist who conducted the intake noted several red flags: evidence of attachment disorder, previous unhealthy relationship patterns, signs of obsessive thinking. The recommendation? Ongoing therapy and psychiatric monitoring. But due to budget cuts and overcrowding, that recommendation was never implemented. Vanessa was placed in general population with periodic check-ins that amounted to 5-minute conversations every few months. Her actual therapy sessions? 0. Her psychiatric monitoring? Non-existent. Linda Ochoa held a press conference outside the courthouse. "My client is mentally ill," she said bluntly. "She needed help. She was supposed to receive help. The state of California knew she had problems, documented those problems, and then did nothing. For 2 years, Vanessa Martinez deteriorated inside a system that failed her. And when she finally snapped, everyone acts shocked. I'm not shocked. I'm angry, because this was preventable." The press conference ignited a firestorm. Victims' rights advocates were furious. "She stabbed a man who was just doing his job," one spokesperson said. "Mental illness doesn't excuse attempted murder. Derek Chen has trauma that will last the rest of his life. Where's the sympathy for him?"
Prison reform advocates countered, "This is exactly what we've been warning about for decades. You can't warehouse human beings, deny them mental health treatment, and then be surprised when they become dangerous. The system created this tragedy." But the prosecution had one more piece of evidence that complicated the narrative even further. 3 days before the attack, Derek Chen had filed a report that, mysteriously, never made it to his supervisors. In the report, Derek noted that inmate Martinez had been positioning herself in his vicinity more frequently than seemed coincidental. He requested a review of her housing assignment to move her to a unit outside his regular patrol area. The report was submitted through the proper channels. It should have been reviewed within 24 hours. Instead, it sat in a supervisor's inbox unread while that supervisor dealt with a staffing crisis in another wing. When investigators confronted the supervisor, Lieutenant Daniel Walsh, he was defensive. He said, "I get 200 emails a day. We're understaffed. We're overwhelmed. I'm doing the job of 3 people. That report was in my queue. I didn't get to it in time. I live with that every day." So here was the twist. Multiple people had seen warning signs. Multiple people had tried to intervene, and the system had failed at every level. Derek Chen had tried to protect himself. His report was ignored. Officer Thompson had tried to raise concerns. His report was filed away. Dr. Foster had tried to evaluate Vanessa properly. He wasn't given enough time. Vanessa herself had been flagged at intake as needing mental health support. That support never materialized. And now, one man was fighting for his recovery, another woman was facing life in prison, and everyone involved was asking the same question: whose fault was this really? The trial of Vanessa Martinez was set to begin in 4 months. The charges: attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, assault on a correctional officer. If convicted, she faced 25 years to life. But Linda Ochoa was preparing a defense that would put the entire California correctional system on trial alongside her client, and she had evidence, documentation, and expert witnesses ready to prove that the system had failed everyone involved. Derek Chen, still recovering from his injuries, made a statement through his attorney. He said, "I don't want this case to become a political football. I want accountability. I want reform. And I want to make sure this never happens to another correctional officer or another inmate, because the truth is, we all lost that day. Everyone." Sarah, his fiancée, had a different perspective. In a victim impact statement submitted to the court, she wrote, "My fiancé believed in redemption. He believed in second chances. Someone nearly killed him for that belief. I'm supposed to forgive? I'm supposed to understand? I'm trying. But mostly I'm just angry. Angry at a system that let this happen. Angry at people who saw warning signs and did nothing. And yes, angry at Vanessa Martinez, who decided her obsession mattered more than another human being's life." The stage was set. The battle lines were drawn. And in 4 months, a courtroom would try to answer questions that California correctional system had been avoiding for decades.
The trial began on a cold Monday morning in February 2022. The courtroom was packed. Media, victims' rights advocates, prison reform activists, Derek Chen's family, Vanessa Martinez's family. Everyone wanted answers. District Attorney Monica Reeves opened with a straightforward narrative. This was a case about choice. Vanessa Martinez had choices. She chose obsession. She chose violence. She chose to stab an innocent man. Mental illness may explain behavior, Reeves told the jury, but it doesn't excuse it. Thousands of inmates in California's correctional system have mental health issues. They don't all attack guards. Vanessa Martinez made a conscious decision to obtain a weapon,
to lure Officer Chen into an isolated area, and to use violence when he rejected her delusions. That's not mental illness. That's attempted murder. The prosecution presented their evidence: the journal, the drawings, the witness statements, the surveillance footage. They called Derek Chen to the stand. Derek walked slowly to the witness box. 7 months after the attack, he still moved carefully, protecting his right side where the screwdriver had punctured his lung. Sarah sat in the front row, her hands clenched together so tightly her knuckles were white. Derek testified for 3 hours. He described his approach to corrections, his belief in rehabilitation, his interactions with Vanessa, all professional, all appropriate, and then he described the attack itself. She was crying, Derek said, his voice steady but strained. I kept saying she loved me, that I had to understand that we were meant to be together. I told her I was calling for backup, and that's when she grabbed the screwdriver. I don't think she meant to stab me. I think she was just trying to stop me from calling for help. But intent doesn't matter when there's a blade in your chest. Under cross-examination, Linda Ochoa was respectful but pointed. Officer Chen, you filed a report 3 days before the attack, expressing concern about inmate Martinez's behavior, correct? Yes. And that report was never acted upon, correct? That's correct. In fact, you were never even informed that your concerns had been received or were being addressed, were you? No, I wasn't. So you did your job. You identified a potential problem. You followed proper protocol, and the system failed you. Is that fair to say? Derek hesitated. The system is overwhelmed, but yes, I believe if that report had been acted on, I wouldn't be here today. Linda nodded. And inmate Martinez wouldn't be on trial for attempted murder, would she? The prosecution objected. The judge sustained, but the point was made. The defense strategy became clear. Linda Ochoa wasn't trying to prove Vanessa was innocent. She was trying to prove the system was guilty. She called expert witness after expert witness. Psychiatrists testified about the effects of untreated mental illness in prison populations. Prison reform advocates testified about California's failure to provide adequate mental health services. Former correctional officers testified about the culture of ignoring warning signs until tragedy strikes. And then Linda Ochoa called Vanessa Martinez to the stand. The courtroom went silent. Vanessa walked slowly to the witness box. She'd lost weight. Her hair, once carefully styled, hung limp around her face. She looked small, fragile, broken. Linda's questioning was gentle. Vanessa, do you remember the day you attacked Officer Chen? I remember parts of it. It's like watching a movie of someone else's life. I remember being angry. I remember feeling desperate. I remember thinking if he would just listen to me, just hear me, everything would be okay. Do you understand now that Officer Chen didn't have romantic feelings for you? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Yes, I understand now, but in that moment, I couldn't see it. I couldn't accept it. I'd convinced myself that we had a connection, that he was just scared to act on it because of the rules. I thought I could make him see what I saw. Did you intend to kill Officer Chen? No. Vanessa directly looked at the jury. I swear to God, no. I wanted him to listen. I wanted him to stay. When he tried to call for backup, I panicked. The screwdriver was just there, and I grabbed it, and I thought maybe if I just scared him enough, he'd give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to explain. That's all I wanted. But you stabbed him. I know. Tears streamed down Vanessa's face. I know what I did, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I hurt someone who only ever showed me kindness. I destroyed his life. I destroyed my own life. Because I was sick, and nobody helped me, and I didn't know how to help myself. The prosecution's cross-examination was brutal. Monica Reeves held up the journal, read entries aloud that showed premeditation and planning. She asked Vanessa about the drawings, about the letters, about the false fire alarm. You planned this, didn't you, Miss Martinez? This wasn't a spontaneous emotional breakdown. You studied Officer Chen's schedule, you positioned yourself in his path, you created an opportunity, you manipulated Officer Rodriguez into giving you library access. You pulled that fire alarm. Every single step was calculated. Vanessa couldn't deny it. I planned to be alone with him. I didn't plan to hurt him. But you brought a weapon. I didn't bring it. It was just there. Conveniently there. In a building you knew was being repaired. On a day you knew would be understaffed. You planned everything except what to do when Officer Chen rejected you. And when he rejected you, you tried to kill him. No, Vanessa whispered. I didn't want him dead. I wanted him to love me. Well, Miss Martinez, you got neither. What you got was 15 years added to your sentence and a victim who will never fully recover. Was it worth it? Vanessa didn't answer. She just put her head in her hands and sobbed. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the verdict split the difference between the prosecution and the defense. Guilty of aggravated assault, not guilty of attempted murder. The jury believed Vanessa had intended to threaten Derek, to intimidate him, but not to kill him. The stabbing, they concluded, was reckless and resulted from a struggle, not a calculated execution. The courtroom erupted. Derek's family was furious. Sarah stormed out. Prison reform advocates claimed victory. Vanessa's family wept with relief. But the sentencing phase would bring the final twist that nobody saw coming.
Judge Patricia Brennan had a reputation for being tough but fair. She'd reviewed all the evidence, all the expert testimony, all the documentation of systemic failures. And when she delivered Vanessa's sentence, she delivered something else too. A scathing rebuke of the California Department of Corrections. Miss Martinez, Judge Brennan said, looking directly at Vanessa, you are guilty of a terrible crime. You harmed an innocent man who showed you nothing but professionalism and compassion. For that, you will serve an additional 12 years to run consecutively with your current sentence. You will receive the mental health treatment you should have received from day one of your incarceration. You will not be eligible for parole until you have completed intensive psychiatric therapy and are certified by multiple independent mental health professionals as no longer a threat to yourself or others. Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. But Judge Brennan wasn't finished. However, she continued, turning to face the California Department of Corrections representatives in the courtroom. This tragedy was preventable. Miss Martinez was identified as high risk during intake. That assessment was ignored. Officer Chen filed a report identifying concerning behavior. That report was ignored. Multiple staff members raised red flags. Those flags were ignored.
This court finds that the California Department of Corrections shares responsibility for the events that transpired. The judge ordered a comprehensive review of mental health services in all California correctional facilities. She mandated immediate implementation of improved threat assessment protocols. She required that any staff report of concerning inmate behavior be reviewed and acted upon within 24 hours. We cannot continue to warehouse human beings, deny them adequate mental health care, and act surprised when a tragedy results. This ends now. Or the next time a case like this appears in my courtroom, I will hold state officials in contempt. The ruling made national headlines. California's governor promised reforms. The Correctional Officers Union demanded better training and staffing. Victims' rights groups protested that the judge had been too lenient with Vanessa. But the real final twist came 3 months after the trial ended. Derek Chen gave his first and only television interview. Sitting beside Sarah, now his wife, they'd gotten married in a small ceremony during his recovery. Derek spoke about forgiveness. I don't forgive Vanessa Martinez for what she did. I may never forgive her, but I understand that she was failed by a system that was supposed to help her, just like I was failed by a system that was supposed to protect me. We were both victims of a broken correctional system that prioritizes punishment over rehabilitation, that cuts mental health funding until tragedies become inevitable. The interviewer asked the question everyone wanted answered. Do you regret showing compassion to inmates? Do you regret the approach that Vanessa Martinez exploited? Derek shook his head firmly. No. I don't regret treating people like human beings. I regret that the system made me choose between being compassionate and being safe. Those shouldn't be mutually exclusive. We can have corrections officers who treat inmates with dignity, and we can have systems in place to protect everyone when mental illness turns dangerous. We just have to choose to fund those systems. We have to choose to make them work. Sarah added quietly, Derek almost died because he believed people deserved second chances. I'm not as forgiving as he is, but I understand what he's saying. Vanessa Martinez is in prison. Derek is alive. Now we need to make sure the system changes so the next Derek and the next Vanessa don't end up in this situation. And what about Vanessa Martinez? Where is she now? She's still incarcerated, serving her 27-year sentence at a different facility. She's in intensive psychiatric treatment. According to her therapist's reports, submitted to the court as part of her ongoing evaluation, Vanessa has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, erotomania, and severe attachment disorder. She writes letters to Derek still. Not love letters anymore. Apology letters, letters taking responsibility, letters expressing remorse. Derek has never responded. His attorney returns them unopened. Vanessa's last letter, dated 6 months ago, said simply, I destroyed both our lives because I confused obsession with love. I'm learning the difference now. It's too late for us, but maybe sharing my story will help someone else recognize the warning signs before they do something they can't take back. I'm sorry, Derek. I'll be sorry for the rest of my life. The California Department of Corrections did implement some reforms. Mental health staffing increased by 18%. New threat assessment protocols were put in place. A special task force was created to review all staff reports within the mandated 24 hours. Is it enough? Ask Derek Chen, and he'll tell you it's a start. Ask Sarah, and she'll tell you her husband still has nightmares. Ask prison reform advocates, and they'll tell you it's not nearly enough. Ask correctional officers, and they'll tell you they're still understaffed, still overwhelmed, still at risk. The truth is, this story doesn't have a neat ending, because the problems it exposed, systemic underfunding, inadequate mental health care, the impossible balance between rehabilitation and security, those problems are still there, still festering, still creating the conditions for the next tragedy. Vanessa Martinez's obsession with Derek Chen ended with a screwdriver in a prison library. But the obsession of a society that would rather lock people away than treat them, that would rather cut budgets than invest in solutions, that obsession continues.
So here's the question I want you to think about. The question that doesn't have an easy answer. Was Vanessa Martinez responsible for what she did? Absolutely. She made choices. Terrible, violent choices. Derek Chen carries the scars of those choices for the rest of his life. But was she the only one responsible? That's where it gets complicated. What about the intake psychologist who identified her mental health issues and recommended treatment that never happened? What about the budget cuts that eliminated the counseling services she desperately needed? What about the supervisor who let Derek's warning report sit unread in his inbox? What about the culture in corrections that treats mental health as a luxury instead of a necessity? We want simple villains and heroes. We want someone to blame. But real life is messier than that. Real life is a woman with untreated mental illness, a compassionate guard trying to do his job with dignity, and a system so broken that tragedy was almost inevitable. So I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, where does the responsibility really lie? Is Vanessa Martinez a monster who deserves everything she got? Is she a victim of a system that failed her? Can she be both? Can we hold her accountable while also demanding the system change? And here's the harder question. If you were on that jury, how would you have voted? Attempted murder or aggravated assault? Justice or mercy? Punishment or rehabilitation? There are no easy answers, but the conversation matters. Because right now, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of inmates in California's correctional system with untreated mental health issues. There are guards working in understaffed facilities, trying to balance compassion with safety. And somewhere, maybe, another obsession is building. Another tragedy is waiting to happen. We can prevent it, but only if we decide prevention matters more than punishment, that treatment matters more than revenge, that both inmates and correctional officers deserve systems that protect them. Derek Chen said it best. We shouldn't have to choose between compassion and safety. We should demand both. If this story made you think, if it challenged you, if it made you uncomfortable, that's the point. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe because I'm bringing you more true crime stories that go deeper than headlines, that ask the questions everyone else is afraid to ask. And if you want to see what happened next, if you want to know about the reforms that actually worked and the ones that failed, check out my next video where I investigate whether California's correctional system actually changed after Vanessa Martinez's case, or if it was all just performative justice. What happened in that prison library was a tragedy. What we do with that tragedy, whether we learn from it or ignore it, that's up to us. I'm reading every single comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what I got wrong. Tell me what I should cover next. Because these aren't just stories. These are warnings. These are lessons. These are calls to action. And the question that should keep all of us up at night is simple. Who's next? Who's the next Derek Chen? Who's the next Vanessa Martinez? And what are we doing right now to make sure there isn't a next time? That's the real story, and it's not over yet. Thanks for watching to the very end. If you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of viewer I create these videos for. Someone who wants more than surface-level coverage. Someone who's willing to sit with uncomfortable questions. And remember, justice isn't just about punishment, it's about prevention. It's about making sure we learn from tragedy instead of just moving on to the next headline. See you in the next one.